Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to tackle a topic that you specifically requested, and I'm really excited to get into it.
Me too.
It's all about Stoicism.
Yeah.
And specifically how the Stoics viewed life as preparation for death.
Right.
You sent in this great article called Life is a Preparation for Death, Stoic Philosophy, from the website The Spiritual Seek, published August 15th, 2024. And it dives into some really interesting concepts like how the Stoics view death not as something to fear, but as a natural part of life, and how that perspective can actually lead to a more meaningful life.
Right. Yeah. It's not about being morbid or fixated on death, but it's about using this awareness of our mortality to really shape a richer and more fulfilling life. And I think the article really gives us a good springboard to dive into that discussion.
Yeah, before we jump into the specifics of the article, maybe we can paint a little bit of a picture for our listener about what Stoicism actually is.
Yeah.
Can you give us just a quick rundown of the core principles and maybe some of the key figures of Stoicism?
Sure. So Stoicism originated in ancient Greece.
Okay.
And it really emphasizes reason and virtue and this idea of living in accordance with nature. And the ultimate goal of all this is to achieve this inner peace and happiness, regardless of your external circumstances.
Okay.
So it's this idea of, imagine yourself being amidst a storm and remaining calm.
Yeah.
That's kind of the essence of Stoic resilience.
Right.
Some of the key figures include, Zeno of Citium, who actually founded the school of Stoicism.
Okay.
And then you have Epictetus, who was actually a slave who ended up becoming this renowned teacher. And then you have Seneca, the Roman statesman and writer.
Right.
And then, of course, one of the most famous Stoics is Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor.
Yeah, I always think it's so fascinating that he was an emperor, and found so much solace in philosophy.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And, his meditations kind of like the original self-help book in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
The article talks about this idea of memento mori,
Yeah.
which is like, remember that you must die.
Uh-huh.
This is something that's very central to Stoicism.
Uh-huh.
And they argue that actually contemplating death can improve our lives.
Right.
How so?
So it might seem a little bit counterintuitive, to think about death as a way to improve your life.
Right.
But by acknowledging our mortality, we actually shift our perspective.
Okay.
And we start to prioritize what truly matters in life.
Okay.
So we start to prioritize, things like our relationships and personal growth and experiences over, fleeting pleasures or material possessions.
So it brings things into focus.
Exactly, yeah. And there's a great quote by Marcus Aurelius that kind of sums this up. He says, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think.
Wow.
So it's this call to really live with intention and make each day count.
So it's not just about dwelling on death, but kind of using that awareness as fuel to live more purposefully.
Exactly.
I know Seneca, in his letters, talks about how people squander time
Yeah.
on trivialities, and then they're totally unprepared when death arrives.
Yeah, he has that great essay on the shortness of life where he really talks about that and how we waste so much time on things that ultimately don't matter.
Right.
So yeah, it's about, not just passively accepting death, but actively shaping our lives.
Now, the article delves into the spiritual a little bit.
Yeah.
It talks about the soul's immortality,
Uh-huh.
which maybe for some people might be a little bit surprising.
Yeah.
Because Stoicism we think of as very much about reason and logic.
Yeah.
How do those two ideas come together?
Right. So the Stoics had this idea that the soul was a fragment of this universal divine reason, sometimes called the logos.
Okay.
And so while our bodies are mortal, they decay.
Right.
Our souls transcend physical death.
Okay.
So you can think of it almost like a drop of water. When it evaporates, it goes back to the ocean.
Right.
So our essence rejoins this universal source.
Interesting. So death becomes less of an ending and more of a transition.
Exactly, yeah. More of a return to the origin.
Yeah.
The article also brings up this kind of mini quiz
Oh, yeah.
to assess how stoic someone is.
Yeah.
And it really emphasizes the importance of moral integrity in this whole idea of preparing for death.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so virtue was really central to Stoic thought.
Okay.
And they believed that, living a virtuous life was essential for true happiness.
Okay.
And they focused on these four cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation.
Yeah.
And each of these played a really important role in guiding our actions and shaping our character. So, for example, courage allows us to face our own mortality without fear. Justice ensures that we treat others fairly. Wisdom helps us to make sound judgments, and moderation helps us to avoid excesses and find balance in our lives.
So the Stoics really saw virtue as this kind of inner strength
Yeah.
that can help us navigate all the complexities of life and even death itself.
Exactly.
The article also encourages us to view our lives as temporary,
Yeah.
just like everything in nature.
Uh-huh.
And it talks about this idea of living according to nature, which is another important principle in Stoicism.
Yeah, that's a core principle. And
Can you elaborate a bit on that for us?
yeah, so the Stoics saw nature as inherently rational and orderly.
Okay.
And so to live in accordance with nature means understanding our place in this grand scheme of things.
Okay.
And acting in harmony with reason. And this perspective really helps us to shift our focus from, seeking external validation to really cultivating our inner character.
Okay.
And this aligns with the idea of preparing for death.
So instead of chasing those fleeting external rewards, we're investing in building lasting inner qualities
Exactly.
that even death can't touch.
Right.
It's a powerful idea.
Yeah, it is. And the article also touches on this idea of amor fati,
Oh, yeah.
which means love of fate.
Love of faith.
And this is a really interesting concept that I think we could spend some time unpacking.
I'd love to hear more about that.
It's this idea of embracing everything that life throws at you, the good and the bad, with a sense of tranquility and even gratitude.
Wow.
So it's this idea that, even if you experience a setback at work, for example, you don't see it as a failure, but you see it as an opportunity to learn and to grow.
It's about reframing those challenges
Exactly.
as part of the journey.
Yeah, it's not about being passive or resigning yourself to fate, but it's about actively embracing fate
Okay.
as part of your journey.
So not passively resigning, but actively embracing.
Exactly, yeah.
The Stoics believed that everything that happens is part of this larger cosmic order.
Right,
Even the things that might seem bad or unfair in the moment.
right,
So it's almost like trusting that the universe has a plan.
exactly.
Yeah.
And by embracing this perspective, we can let go of a lot of that anger and resentment and frustration that we often cling to.
Yeah, it's about surrendering to the flow of life and knowing that things are unfolding as they should, even if it doesn't feel like it.
Exactly.
And I guess that doesn't mean we're passive.
No.
It means we're engaging,
Yeah.
but we're also acknowledging that there's limits to our control.
Right. It's like being a surfer riding a wave. You can't control the wave itself,
Right.
but you can control how you ride it.
Perfect analogy.
And so by cultivating this attitude of acceptance, we actually discover a much more profound sense of inner peace,
Okay.
even amidst all the chaos and uncertainty of life.
So it sounds like Stoicism is not just a philosophy about death,
No.
but a philosophy for living.
Exactly.
A way to approach the entirety of the human experience.
It's like a roadmap
Yeah.
for navigating the human experience.
And what's so cool is that it's just as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago.
Absolutely.
This article does a really good job of making these ancient ideas feel very accessible
It does.
and relevant to our lives today.
Yeah.
We've talked about cosmic consciousness and virtue and acceptance, living in harmony with nature.
Right.
Are there any other key Stoic concepts or practices that you think are really important
Yeah, definitely.
for this idea of life as a preparation for death?
One practice that comes to mind is what's called negative visualization.
Negative visualization.
Yeah.
That sounds intense.
It sounds a little bit counterintuitive, I know,
Yeah.
but it's a really powerful technique for cultivating gratitude and really appreciating what we have in our lives.
Okay, so what does that look like? What does that involve?
So it involves intentionally imagining the loss of things that we value.
Okay.
So, imagining the loss of our health or our loved ones or our possessions.
So we're kind of mentally rehearsing for the worst case scenario.
In a way, yes, but the goal isn't to dwell on negativity or create anxiety.
Okay.
It's to use these imagined losses to appreciate what we have in the present moment.
Oh, so we're using almost the fear of loss
Yeah,
as a catalyst for gratitude. It's
exactly.
like we take something for granted until we almost lose it. And then suddenly we realize how valuable it is.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so by practicing negative visualization regularly,
Okay.
we actually cultivate this deeper sense of gratitude for all the good things in our lives.
Okay.
And this can lead to greater happiness and contentment.
So it's like a mental gym for our appreciation muscle.
Exactly, yeah. And this practice can be incredibly helpful in preparing for death.
How so?
Well, by contemplating the loss of things that we hold dear, we actually start to detach ourselves from them emotionally.
Okay.
So we start to loosen our grip on things that we can't ultimately control.
Okay.
And this detachment can make the process of dying less painful,
Okay.
both for ourselves and for the people that we leave behind.
Because we're not clinging so tightly.
Exactly.
So the letting go becomes a little easier.
Right. And this leads to another important Stoic concept,
Okay.
which is this idea of living in accordance with our roles.
Our roles.
Yeah. So the Stoics believe that each of us has a unique role to play.
Like a cosmic assignment.
Yeah, in a way. And fulfilling our role to the best of our ability is a key to living a meaningful and virtuous life.
So how do we figure out what our role is?
Well, it's not always obvious.
Right.
And it can change over time.
Yeah.
But by paying attention to our natural inclinations and our talents and the opportunities that life presents, we can start to discern our unique path.
It's about listening to our inner compass.
Yeah.
And following those signs.
Exactly.
Okay, so how does this idea of roles tie back to this concept of cosmic consciousness that we were talking about before?
Right. So if we see ourselves as part of this larger interconnected web, our roles are interconnected as well.
Okay.
So it's like we're all part of this giant cosmic team,
Yeah.
each with our unique contribution to make.
That's a beautiful image.
Yeah, and it reminds us that even seemingly small actions can have a ripple effect on the entire universe.
It's not about chasing fame or fortune,
No.
but about finding that role.
Yeah.
And doing our best
Exactly.
within that role.
And by approaching life with this attitude,
Yeah.
we can discover a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction that's independent of, external achievements or recognition.
That's a really powerful concept.
It is.
That no matter where we are,
Yeah.
we can find meaning and purpose.
Exactly.
I think that's a really great place to pause.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground in this first segment.
We have.
From the core principles of Stoicism to this really amazing idea of cosmic consciousness.
Yeah.
We talked about virtue and acceptance and negative visualization and living in accordance with our roles.
It's remarkable how these ancient ideas still offer so much valuable guidance for us today.
Yeah, they really do.
For navigating life's complexities and facing our mortality with courage and grace.
So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a moment to delve even deeper into how these ideas can guide us towards a more meaningful life.
So picking up where we left off, we were talking about this question of, if we really are all interconnected within this grand cosmic web, how does that awareness shape our way of living?
It's a fascinating idea, isn't it?
It is.
Almost like knowing the ending of a movie influences how you perceive the beginning.
That's a great analogy, yeah.
Knowing that our lives are part of this larger cosmic narrative can certainly shift our perspective.
It can.
So let's kind of unpack this a little bit. The article that we're looking at, Life is a Preparation for Death, Stoic Philosophy, it doesn't explicitly mention cosmic consciousness.
Right.
But it emphasizes living virtuously and living harmoniously with nature.
Yeah.
How do those concepts connect to this bigger picture of interconnectedness?
Well, if we see ourselves as these threads within this vast cosmic tapestry, then our actions take on a new significance.
Yes.
Each choice we make, every action we take creates these ripples that impact the whole tapestry.
It's like the butterfly effect on a cosmic scale.
Exactly. And the Stoics believed that by embracing virtue, by cultivating wisdom and justice and courage and moderation, we actually contribute to the overall harmony and well-being of the cosmos.
So it's not just about personal growth.
No.
It's about contributing to something much grander than ourselves.
Exactly. And this idea can be incredibly motivating.
Yeah.
It imbues our lives with a sense of purpose that transcends our individual concerns.
It's almost as if we're each playing a part in this magnificent cosmic symphony.
What a beautiful image.
And through striving to live virtuously, we're ensuring that our part in that symphony contributes to its overall harmony.
Exactly.
So we're bringing our best selves to the cosmic orchestra.
I like that.
Recognizing the ripple effect that it creates throughout the universe.
Yeah.
This idea of a cosmic orchestra brings to mind another really important concept in Stoicism, which is accepting what we cannot control.
Yes, that's fundamental to Stoicism.
Right.
The serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. It really resonates deeply with this idea.
Yeah, the Stoics recognized that so much of life is beyond our control.
Right.
The weather, the economy, other people's actions.
Right.
But what we can control is our reactions to those things.
Exactly. We focus on what we can influence, which is our thoughts, our actions, and our attitudes.
Okay.
And we let go of the rest.
And this is where that idea of cosmic consciousness comes into play again.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear how.
So if we perceive ourselves as part of this larger cosmic order, then even the things that seem bad or unfair could have a purpose that we don't yet understand.
So it's about trusting that the universe has a plan.
Right.
Even if it's not immediately apparent to us.
Exactly. And by embracing this perspective, we can let go of all that anger and resentment and frustration that we so often cling to.
So it's about surrendering to the flow of life.
Right.
Knowing that everything is unfolding as it should, even if it doesn't feel that way in the moment.
Exactly.
And that doesn't mean we're passive or giving up.
Right.
It means we're actively engaged, but we're acknowledging the limits of our control.
Exactly. It's like being a surfer riding a wave.
Right.
You can't control the wave itself.
Right.
But you can control how you ride it.
I love that analogy.
And so by cultivating this attitude of acceptance, we actually discover a much deeper sense of inner peace.
Okay.
Even amidst the chaos and the uncertainty of life.
It really underscores how Stoicism is not just a philosophy about death, but a philosophy for living.
It's a way of life that equips us to face challenges with resilience, to integrate virtue into our actions, and to find meaning and purpose even in the most difficult circumstances.
That's almost like a roadmap for navigating the human experience.
Exactly.
And it's a roadmap that's just as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago.
Absolutely. And, our article does a wonderful job of making these ancient ideas relatable and accessible for us today.
It really does.
Yeah.
It's a great resource for anyone who's curious about Stoicism and its practical application to everyday life.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about cosmic consciousness and virtue and acceptance, living harmoniously with nature. Are there any other key Stoic concepts or practices that you think are really important?
Yeah, definitely.
For this idea of life as a preparation for death.
One practice that comes to mind is what's called negative visualization.
Negative visualization.
Yeah, it sounds a little counterintuitive, I know.
It does. What does that involve?
So it involves intentionally imagining the loss of things that we value.
Right?
So, our health or our loved ones or our possessions.
So we're mentally rehearsing for the worst case scenario.
In a way, yes. But the goal isn't to dwell on negativity or to create anxiety. It's about using these imagined losses to appreciate what we have in the present moment.
So we're using the fear of loss as a catalyst for gratitude.
Exactly.
It's like you don't appreciate something until you almost lose it.
Right.
And then suddenly you realize how valuable it was.
And so by practicing negative visualization regularly, we cultivate a deeper sense of gratitude for all the good things in our lives.
Okay.
And this can lead to greater happiness and contentment.
It's like a mental gym for our appreciation muscle.
Exactly. And this practice can be incredibly helpful in preparing for death.
How so?
Well, by contemplating the loss of things that we hold dear, we actually start to detach ourselves from them emotionally.
Okay.
So we loosen our grip on things that we can't ultimately control.
So we're not clinging so tightly.
Exactly.
Letting go becomes easier.
Exactly. And this leads to another important Stoic concept.
Okay.
Which is this idea of living in accordance with our roles.
Our roles.
Yeah. So the Stoics believe that each of us has a unique role to play.
Like a cosmic assignment.
In a way, yes. And fulfilling that role to the best of our ability is a key to living a meaningful and a virtuous life.
So how do we figure out what our role is?
Well, it's not always obvious.
Right.
It might change over time.
Right.
But by paying attention to our natural inclinations and our talents and the opportunities that life presents, we can begin to discern our unique path.
It's about listening to that inner compass.
Yeah.
And following the signs.
Exactly.
Okay, so how does this idea of roles tie back to that concept of cosmic consciousness that we were talking about earlier?
Right. So if we see ourselves as part of this larger interconnected web, then our roles are interconnected as well.
So we're all part of a giant cosmic team.
That's a great way to put it.
Each with a unique contribution to make.
And it's a reminder that even seemingly small actions can have a ripple effect on the entire universe.
So it's not about chasing fame or fortune.
No.
It's about doing our best.
Exactly.
And whatever role we find ourselves in.
And by approaching life with this attitude, we can discover a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction that's independent of, external achievements or recognition.
That's a really powerful concept.
It is.
It highlights how Stoicism offers a path to meaning and happiness that's accessible to everyone regardless of their circumstances.
Absolutely.
So we've covered some really profound territory in this segment.
We have.
We talked about cosmic consciousness and virtue and acceptance, negative visualization, and living in accordance with our roles.
Right.
It's remarkable how these ancient ideas offer valuable guidance for navigating the complexities of life
They do.
and preparing for this inevitable journey that awaits us all.
Right. It's important to remember, though, that Stoicism isn't just about intellectual concepts
Okay.
or theoretical frameworks.
Right.
It's about putting these ideas into practice in our daily lives.
It's a philosophy meant to be lived?
Exactly.
It's just studied.
And by embodying these principles in our daily lives, we not only prepare for death, but we live more fulfilling and meaningful lives right now.
So before we wrap up this segment, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that death can be a difficult and emotionally charged topic for many people.
Yeah, it's something we tend to avoid thinking about.
Exactly. But the Stoics believe that by confronting our mortality head-on, we diminish its power over us.
So we're facing our fears
Exactly.
rather than avoiding them.
And by doing so, we liberate ourselves from the anxiety and the dread that often surrounds thoughts of death.
That's a powerful reminder.
Yes.
And really speaks to the transformative potential of Stoic philosophy.
Absolutely. It's a philosophy that empowers us to live with greater courage, wisdom, and acceptance, not just in the face of death, but in all aspects of our lives.
We've covered so much ground today, but before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listener with one final thought.
Okay.
And it goes back to this idea that Stoicism is a philosophy of action.
Ah, yes. Knowledge without action is like a seed that's never planted.
Exactly. So I encourage you to take some time to reflect on the ideas we've discussed today. Yeah. And see how you might apply them to your own life. Maybe pick one Stoic practice or principle that resonates with you and commit to trying it out for a week or two.
See how it affects your outlook,
your
actions, your overall well-being. You might be surprised at the difference that even small changes can make.
And who knows? You might just discover that Stoicism holds a key to unlocking a more meaningful and fulfilling life, both in the present moment and in the face of life's ultimate challenge.
Well said.
So let's take a moment to gather our thoughts.
Yeah.
And we'll be back in just a moment for our final segment,
Okay.
where we'll tie everything together and explore some concluding insights from the article. Welcome back to our deep dive into Stoicism and its perspective on life as a preparation for death. We've explored some really profound concepts, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
I agree. It's a rich philosophy with so much to offer.
As we wrap up, I want to circle back to the article that we've been discussing, Life as a Preparation for Death, Stoic Philosophy.
Yeah, it really does lay out a great framework for understanding how the Stoics viewed this idea of preparing for death.
One thing that stood out to me was its emphasis on moral integrity.
Right. The Stoics placed a lot of emphasis on aligning our actions with our principles.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure. It wasn't just about following rules blindly, but about cultivating those core virtues, wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation, and letting those virtues guide our choices and our interactions.
It's about striving to be the best versions of ourselves.
Exactly. Not just for personal gain, but for the betterment of the whole.
I like how you phrased that, for the betterment of the whole. It speaks to that interconnectedness we were discussing earlier.
Absolutely. This idea of moral integrity connects directly to the Stoic view of death.
In what way?
Well, by living a life consistent with our values, we can face death without fear or regret, knowing we've lived a life worth living.
It's like building a legacy of virtue that goes beyond our physical existence.
It's a beautiful way to put it. And it brings us back to that concept of cosmic consciousness.
Yeah.
If we see ourselves as part of this larger whole, then our actions have a ripple effect that extends far beyond our individual lives.
It's a powerful reminder that even seemingly small acts of kindness, compassion, integrity can have a profound impact on the world around us. What we do matters not just for ourselves, but for that whole interconnected web of existence.
Yeah, and this brings us to another really important takeaway from the article, which is the importance of living in the present moment.
The Stoics were big on that, weren't they?
They were. They understood that dwelling on the past or worrying about the future just robs us of the only moment we truly have.
The present.
Right. They encouraged us to be fully present in each experience, appreciate the beauty around us, and make the most of the time that we have.
It's about savoring the journey, not just focusing on the destination.
Exactly. And while death is an inevitable destination, Stoicism teaches us that we have the power to choose how we travel that road.
We have agency
We
in
do.
how we live each day.
How we treat others, how we cultivate our inner selves.
This brings to mind a quote from Marcus Aurelius that I find really powerful.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be.
It will.
Be one."
I love that quote. It's a call to action.
It is.
It's a reminder that philosophy isn't just about thinking.
Yeah.
It's about doing. It's about putting these principles into practice in our daily lives.
So as we conclude this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
Okay, I like it.
Pick one Stoic practice that resonates with you,
Okay.
whether it's memento moriing, negative visualization, or just focusing on living virtuously, and try incorporating it into your life this week.
Yeah, see how it affects your perspective, your actions, and your overall sense of well-being? You might be surprised at the difference that even small changes can make.
This deep dive has been a real journey of discovery for me, and I hope it has been for you too. Remember, the journey doesn't end here.
It doesn't. Stoicism offers so much wisdom and so many practices that can help us navigate all of life's complexities
Absolutely.
and face our mortality with courage and with grace.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep striving to live a life worthy of a good death.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time.